Alright guys, today I'm going to be making some week 1 NFL picks. Now when I do these videos, I'm not going to be doing every single game that week. I'm just going to be going over some that I think are going to be fun games to watch and that I'm going to predict. So first up, we're going to have the Ravens and Chiefs. This game actually starts in 30 minutes from when I'm recording this. But I think that the Chiefs are going to start the year pretty hot. And I think it's obvious that on paper, this team actually does look a little bit better than they did last year. Now, I wouldn't be surprised if the Ravens actually came out on top this game, but I think Mahomes is going to go out there and he's going to look pretty steady, and he's going to have a pretty solid game. I think Lamar will look pretty solid too. But I just think that we're starting the season off with a really good game, kind of like last year with the Lions and Chiefs, but we're just going to have to see how it goes. I really think that the game will end up the Chiefs will play pretty steady. They won't dominate, but they'll hold the lead for most of the game. And the over-under for the game is 46.5. And I think I'm actually going to take the under on the game. I believe these defenses are good enough to slow down the other team from scoring. Right? So I think that the game's just going to be kind of slow, chipping away. I don't think it's going to be big play after big play or anything. So I think he'll probably finish like 23-20, somewhere in that neighborhood. But it wouldn't really surprise me if the Ravens do end up coming out on top. I mean, I think that the receiver core for the Chiefs is probably a little bit better. At least I'd say so. I'm pretty sure Rashee Rice is playing. I'm not sure if he actually ever got suspended. But moving on to my next game. My next game is going to be the Colts. Oh, not the Colts. The Bengals versus the Patriots. And, I mean, the Bengals are a good team. I think we should know this. I feel like they just haven't really been talked about this year. It feels like, just because I feel like people, they think they're going to be good, but they're not going to be super optimistic on the Bengals or super high up on them just because we're not entirely sure. We'll have to see how Joe Burrow will do. But the Patriots will definitely struggle, and I feel like there's not going to be a lot of hope shown for them this year. Not this year, but just this game. I think that, obviously Jacoby's the starter. And he's a fine quarterback, but he doesn't have much upside. We know what he is right now. And I think Joe Burrow will look pretty good, as well as the rest of the offense. It does sound like that Ja'Marr Chase is playing, which is good for me. I took him 1 in fantasy, so I'm happy about that. But the over-under is 40.5, and I'm going to take the over just because I believe the Bengals will run it up for the most part. I think it could end up being like 31 to 10. Like, I think that's a fine score. Maybe even like 38-35 to like 7 or 3 if the Patriots score a little less. But moving on next to my next game. Next up here, we're going to have the Broncos versus the Seahawks. And I think Bo Nix is going to really get comfortable this game. He won't pass a lot, but he might actually show a little bit of struggle here. It feels like this is going to be a game. He might not throw an interception or anything. He'll definitely end up looking pretty comfortable by the end of it, but there might just be a couple blank throws that don't quite feel right. Just something like that. And I'm not really as high on the Seahawks this year as a lot of people are. They're in a really competitive division, and I don't really believe they have the team to match. I think it'll be interesting to see how their new coach does. That's what I'm kind of looking forward this year. But I mean, Geno Smith is a fine quarterback. I'm not going to sit here and act like he's top 16 because he's probably not. I think by the end of the year, a lot of the rookies are going to surpass him. But I think it's probably an upset game, and the Broncos will beat the Seahawks. I know a lot of people are taking the Seahawks, but I actually think the Broncos should come out on top here. And the over-under for this game is 41.5, and I'm going to take the under. I think the score will be like 23-13 or something kind of like that. It's not going to be a super high-scoring game. Like I said, I think there's a chance that the players are just kind of chipping away. I guess the teams in general, they're just kind of chipping at each other the whole game. And it's not ever going to truly spread out, but it'll look mostly steady for the Broncos, I think. But moving on next, I'm going to go into doing player picks now. I went on the one fantasy app I use. and they also have like a bet thing. So I've just taken some of the over-unders that I would actually take. So for my first pick, I'm going to take Bryce Young's over on 199 passing yards. I think the Panthers can actually start the season off strong with a win and quite dominant game over the Saints. I think he has a good chance to finish with around 220 passing yards. I actually think Bryce Young has a shot to be pretty good this year, although a lot of people don't want to talk about him as much. Understandably, last season wasn't the best, but I think he does have a chance to shock some people this year. And I think week 1 against the Saints, he shouldn't show a lot of struggle. There might be a little bit, but I think he'll play pretty fine for the most part. But I do think he'll finish around 220 passing yards, maybe a couple touchdowns. Next up is going to be Brian Thomas Jr. with over 3.5 receptions. I expect Brian Thomas to end up being one of the best receivers out of this class, honestly. And I feel like he's flying very far under the radar. I think there's a solid chance he actually finishes this game with around 7 receptions. I know the Jags have Christian Kirk and Gabe Davis, but I think that he's going to end up being probably the receiver 2 by the end of the year, above Gabe Davis, and it wouldn't surprise me if he does end up surpassing Christian Kirk. He had a fine preseason. I feel like he's just not getting talked about a lot, but I think that he can finish with around 7 receptions, and he might even catch a touchdown. They do play the Dolphins, though, and they're a pretty solid defense, so we'll just have to see how it ends up going. Up next, I think for my final player, I'm going to take the under on Gardner Minshew's 216.5 passing yards. I like Minshew, but I'm just not super high on the Raiders. And I feel like people think they're better than they really are. I think the team will be fine, especially now that they have who I believe is a competent coach, unlike Josh McDaniel. But I don't see, Gardner Minshew going out there and having as many passing yards as people are saying, or just having as good of a season as people are saying. I think that it's pretty clear the Raiders might end up drafting a quarterback this year. But against the Chargers, Minshew could actually end up lighting them up and go crazy like that. But I just feel like he won't. But we'll just have to see how it goes. This was my first predictions video for the NFL season. I'll probably be trying to make them every week. I don't really see why I'd miss a week or anything. But thank you guys for watching, and have a great day. There's an ESPN notification.